all sides to desist from that violence and to come to an agreement for a political transition in Yemen. That's what we've been working towards for a long time. Of course, our power as the United Kingdom to bring that about is relatively limited, but we're working with the Arab countries, particularly the Gulf states, in order to try to bring that about.
The clashes reached on as UN envoy to Yemen Jamal bin Omar and Gulf Cooperation Council Secretary General Abdulatif al-Zayani arrived in Sana'a on Monday on official visit. A source in Yemen's political opposition say they were meeting with government officials and diplomats to try to push through a deal. UN mediators were expected to join the talks. The escalation into military confrontation is a major concern. Many fear this will make it even harder to reach a political settlement under which Saleh could hand over power. Su Yuting, CCTV.
The United Nations Human Rights Office says Syria's crackdown on protests has intensified. The death toll there has now climbed to 2,700. That's an increase of 100 in the last 1 week alone. Residents in the countryside north of the city of Homs say that Syrian forces shot dead at least 6 villagers and 2 rebel soldiers in a sweep on Monday. The assault on Hula, that's a collection of villages just north of Homs, followed a large protest just the night before. Around 12 government soldiers manning rural checkpoints there had defected. To Libya now, where fighting continues to the east of Bani Walid. NTC soldiers are trying to push their way into the town through the north gate, but they were repelled by mortars and heavy machine gun fire. Chairong has more.
There were sporadic battles in Bani Walid on Monday as poorly equipped anti-Gaddafi fighters grouped at the town's northern gate and tried to fight their way in. On Saturday, NTC troops pulled out of Bani Walid to regroup after coming under heavy fire. A military spokesman for the NTC says top commanders met with the leaders of smaller brigades on Monday to try to rein in the chaotic fighting and organize ranks before the new push on the town. Meanwhile, in Gaddafi's hometown Sirte, fighting continues. A number of civilians, including children, were seen taking refuge at a mosque on the outskirts of the city, while continuous gunfire was heard in the distance. The fighters push into the city in the morning, but withdraw at night, forcing them to battle their way in each day. The NTC military spokesman says they still have no solid information about the whereabouts of former leader Muammar Gaddafi. Chairong, CCTV.
Well, the other big story this week in the Middle East, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas with his separate statehood bid at the United Nations. He's met with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon ahead of the General Assembly. He told Ban of Palestinian plans to seek full UN membership. Abbas said he will push ahead with plans to seek full membership despite the certainty of a US veto. Now, at the same time, the Palestinian leader also acknowledged the fact that the process would risk his Palestinian Authority, which is so heavily dependent on international financial aid. Now, Ban told Abbas that he would perform his duties under the UN Charter and called for both Israelis and Palestinians to resume negotiations. The Palestinians have said they could also go to the UN General Assembly to request an upgrade in their standing there from just being an entity to a non-member state, a move which they say is likely to pass with the support of at least 125 members in the 193-member General Assembly. U.S. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu has accused Iran of denial, deceit and evasion. He's warned that Tehran's decision to move some uranium enrichment facilities to an underground bunker brings it that much closer to being able to produce a nuclear weapon. But Tehran says Western pressure was the singular reason for its decision to relocate thousands of enrichment machines. Now, the sharp tone of the exchanges on the opening day of the International Atomic Energy Agency's annual conference reflects the international divide over Iran's nuclear activities. Now, this comes 9 years after revelations that the Islamic Republic was secretly assembling a uranium enrichment facility. Now, since then, the UN Security Council has imposed 4 sets of sanctions on Iran, but Tehran maintains it wants only to produce fuel for civilian purposes. On Monday, its delegation handed out small gift boxes bearing the slogan, "Nuclear energy for all and nuclear weapons for none." 4 earthquakes have struck southern Guatemala within a 2.5-hour time period, killing at least 3 people. On Monday, the quakes hit near the country's southwestern coast in the sugarcane growing region around Santa Rosa. It forced the evacuation of about 400 people. It cut off electricity and telephone services temporarily. 2 of the 3 deaths were buried in a landslide caused by the earthquake, while 13 people have been hospitalized. The U.S. Geological Survey says an initial 4.8 magnitude quake hit at 12 p.m. local time, and that was followed about half an hour later by a second one measuring 5.8. There were 2 smaller ones after that. The area is earthquake prone, with about 15,000 tiny quakes since 1979. And that's not the only earthquake-related story. At least 50 people are now confirmed dead after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake in the Himalayas. The Indian state of Sikkim is the worst affected area, with parts of Nepal and China's Tibet Autonomous Region also badly hit. As Danielle Taft tells us, the rescue operation in India has been hampered by the geography of the mountainous region.
The misery didn't end when the tremors stopped, as rain and landslides spread across India's Sikkim. Hundreds of soldiers have been sent to the northeastern region, hoping to get aid to the most isolated and in need. But the task is perilous and the journey is long, as the local airport has had to close and the highway is blocked. In a bid to overcome the hurdles, the Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has ordered the airlifting of supplies to the worst-hit areas. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary says the rescue effort is going well.
We have about 12 teams of NDRF on the standby at Bagdogra for being heli-lifted to Gangtok as soon as the weather clears. But apart from that, we have a large number of Army personnel and ITBP personnel and SSB personnel already on the ground, looking around, carrying out relief and rescue work. So the situation is very well under control.
He also added that electricity had been restored and roads would be repaired by Monday night. Sikkim has the highest number of casualties, but the devastation has also spread to neighbouring Nepal and China's Tibet Autonomous Region, where search and rescue operations have also been set up. Danielle Taft, CCTV.
Meanwhile, in neighbouring Pakistan, monsoon rains have flooded large parts of the southern regions there. Now, according to a report by the United Nations, in the last 6 weeks, over 200 people have died and more than 1.8 million have been displaced. Chai Rong has the story.
Pakistan is no stranger to flooding during the monsoon season that lasts from June to September. This year, the rain has been heavier than normal and coming as many people were still trying to recover from last year's floods, which were the worst in the country's history. This year's floods have destroyed nearly 700,000 homes and forced residents in Badin, the worst-hit area about 200 kilometers from Karachi, to leave their houses for temporary shelters and tents. Some flood victims complain they are not receiving enough aid from the government.
My house was destroyed. We have been sitting here since last week. We did not get any relief. We are eating our own food. We are helpless. There's nothing left to eat. Where do we go?
The United Nations, meanwhile, has appealed for about $360 million to help millions of Pakistanis affected by floods. The money will be used to help more than 5 million people over the next 6 months.
The numbers are growing by the day, and we would like to be able to reach as many people as possible with humanitarian assistance, as mentioned, the food, the water, the shelter, the health care, to help keep people alive and to help them to move forward so that they can hopefully return to their homes and recover.
According to the Pakistani government, China, Japan and the US have pledged relief goods or money. In 2010, the floods followed the course of the river Indus and its tributaries from the foothills of the Himalayas all the way to the ocean. As much as 1/5 of the country's landmass and 20 million people were affected at the peak. Chai CCTV.
And the Pakistani Prime Minister has cancelled his scheduled trip to the United Nations General Assembly to try and deal with the aftermath of the floods. That, though, is a wrap of this news update here on CCTV News. I'm Zaka Jacob in Beijing. Thanks for your time and see you again at 11 a.m. local time. Bye-bye.
Hi there. Now that city famous for terracotta warrior Xi'an has broken the record of rain accumulation for September since 1984, accumulating almost 300 millimeters of rainfall here. Now it is going to ease off there over the next couple of days and instead focus on southwestern China from Yunnan all the way through eastern Guizhou, southern Shanxi here. A light to moderate intensity rainfall mostly, but heavier in southern Yunnan. Also some rainfall in the southern Huanan there, but heavy to torrential in Hainan. As for the rest of China, mostly sunny skies to cloudy skies, even into Wednesday, but that will lighten up in southern Yunnan on Wednesday there. Still heavy to torrential in Hainan Island. Day highs around 15 to 25 degrees across most of China. A little warmer in the south, about 25 to 30. More areas are going to warm up to 20 in the north and central parts on Wednesday. Over to North America, this low pressure system in central Canada is going to affect more areas of central and eastern parts of the continent there. Over the next couple of days, we're going to have heavy rainfall, marked to heavy, with some very strong winds that go for 7 to 9 in western Canada. Also some light to moderate in the Dakotas there. On Thursday, that rain is going to continue to be quite heavy in western Canada, and we're going to see some rain in Ontario all the way to southeastern USA there. Thunder showers. Temps in the east coast and west coast are going to warm up. Day highs in San Francisco and Portland should be about 30 degrees there. Well, temps will cool down in central U.S. below 20. In summary then, Ottawa, light rain at 17, New York 24, Washington 28, warmer in Miami at 32, Houston 29, thunder showers for Chicago, quite warm in Vegas at 33, and very cool in Seattle and Vancouver down in the teens.